At the opening of the 19th century, New York stands as a city defined by its water and its ambition. The island of Manhattan is not yet the concrete grid of the modern imagination, but a rugged, uneven landscape of hills, marshes, and rocky outcrops. The city itself is a dense cluster of brick and timber, huddled at the southern tip of the island, looking out across a harbor that is quickly becoming the most important gateway in the New World. To walk these streets in the early 1800s is to experience a city in a state of constant, restless motion, where the air is a thick cocktail of salt spray, horse manure, and the chimney smoke of 1,000 coal fires. The Battery serves as the city's front porch. Here, the land meets the sea in a curve of green parkland and heavy stone fortifications. Looking south, the harbor is a vast, gray expanse dotted with the white sails of merchant ships. New York is an island city, and its lifeblood is the tide. The Hudson River to the west and the East River to the right embraced the city like two great arms, bringing with them the trade of the entire globe. At the water's edge, the ground is soft and often muddy, the result of a city that is literally growing by pushing itself into the river. The shoreline is a jagged line of wooden piers and slips, each one a hive of activity where the wealth of nations is unloaded by hand. Move toward South Street, and the sky begins to disappear. This is the forest of masts. Sailing ships from London, Canton, Liverpool, and the Caribbean crowd the piers so tightly that their bowsprits overhang the street itself, creating a wooden canopy over the heads of passers-by. The noise here is a constant, rhythmic thrum, the creak of heavy timber, the snap of wet canvas, and the shouting of stevedores in a dozen different languages. Men with skin weathered by the trade winds haul heavy crates of tea, barrels of salt pork, and bolts of fine silk across buckled wooden planks. The smell is overwhelming, a mix of tar, raw sugar, wet hemp, and the briny stench of the East River. This is the city's economic heart, a place where the distance between a fortune and a failure is measured by the arrival of a single ship. Broadway carves its way north, acting as the city's spine. It is the widest and most prestigious thoroughfare, a stage where the social order of the young republic is on full display. The cobblestones, often slick with rain or filth, rattle under the iron-rimmed wheels of private carriages and heavy stagecoaches. On the sidewalks, the elite of New York, the Knickerbockers, walk with a sense of measured authority. Men in high silk hats and caped overcoats pass women in high-waisted empire gowns, their silk slippers picking a careful path through the mud. The architecture here is a testament to the federal style, neat, red brick townhouses with white marble trim and polished brass knockers. Every window is a symmetrical eye looking out onto the chaos of the street. At the foot of Broadway stands Trinity Church. Its spire is the tallest point in the city, a stone sentinel that can be seen from far out in the harbor. The churchyard is a quiet forest of leaning slate headstones, a reminder of the colonial past that the city is so eager to outgrow. Nearby, the Tontine Coffee House at the corner of Wall and Water Street serves as the unofficial headquarters of New York's merchant class. Inside, the air is thick with tobacco smoke and the urgent whispers of men trading stocks and insurance shares. There is no stock exchange building yet. The market exists in the speech and the handshakes of men standing under a buttonwood tree or gathered around a coffee urn. As you move east, away from the elegance of Broadway, the streets begin to narrow and twist. The neat brick gives way to weathered timber. This is the transition into the world of the working class. In the markets like the Fly Market or the Bear Market, the city's appetite is laid bare. Farmers from Long Island and New Jersey bring their wagons across the ferries, filled with crates of squawking poultry, sides of beef, and mounds of seasonal vegetables. Street vendors, many of them free black New Yorkers, call out their wares with melodic cries. They sell hot corn, pepper pot soup, and oysters by the dozen. Oysters are the fast food of the 1800s, sold from cellar kitchens and street carts, their shells discarded in such volume that they are often used to pave the very streets they are sold on. Deep in the 6th Ward lies the 5 Points. The name comes from the intersection of 5 streets that form a jagged star of leaning tenements and rotting wooden shacks. This area is built over the reclaimed site of the Collect Pond, a once pristine body of water that became so polluted by tanneries and slaughterhouses that it had to be filled in. But the ground is unstable. The earth beneath the 5 Points is a soft, stinking marsh that causes the buildings to sink and tilt at odd angles. Life in the 5 Points is lived in the open because the interiors are unbearable. Families of 10 or more are crowded into single, windowless rooms where the dampness rises through the floorboards. In the alleys, laundry is strung between buildings like tattered flags of poverty. This is a world of extreme density and constant friction. Irish immigrants, fleeing famine and hardship, live side by side with black families, creating a unique, high-tension culture of dance, music, and conflict. The air here is heavy with the smell of wood smoke, unwashed bodies, and the stagnant water that pools in the gutters. It is a place the wealthy avoid, yet it is the engine of the city's manual labor force. Water is the city's great challenge. There is no central plumbing, no reservoir to feed the growing population. Most New Yorkers rely on local wells like the T water pump, but as the city grows, these wells become tainted by the proximity of outhouses and graveyards. Wealthy residents buy water by the barrel, delivered by horse and cart, while the poor take their chances with the pumps. This lack of clean water is a physical weight on the city, leading to the periodic arrival of yellow fever and cholera. When the bells of the city begin to toll for the dead, the wealthy flee north to the country air of Greenwich Village, leaving the poor to navigate the empty, lime-scented streets. Night in the 1800s is not dark, but it is dim. The city is lit by whale oil lamps that cast a flickering, amber glow over the cobblestones. The light does not reach the center of the street, leaving the middle in deep shadow. In these shadows, the night soil, men go about their grim work, emptying the privies of the city and hauling the waste away in horse-drawn carts. The sound of their heavy wheels is a nightly rhythm, a reminder of the city's struggle to remain clean. For the adventurous, the oyster cellars are open late, marked by red-painted lanterns. Inside, the heat of the ovens and the steam from the shells create a humid, underground world where class lines occasionally blur over a pint of porter. The architecture of the city is shifting toward stone. City Hall, completed in 1812, stands in its park as a masterpiece of French Renaissance and Federal influence. Its front and sides are carved from expensive white marble, but its back, facing north toward the undeveloped parts of the island, is made of cheap brownstone. The planners of the day believed the city would never grow far enough north for anyone to see the back of the building. It is a rare moment of short-sightedness in a city otherwise obsessed with expansion. In front of City Hall, the park is a place of public assembly, where the news of the War of 1812 or the opening of the Erie Canal is met with bonfire celebrations and the firing of cannons. Moving north of Canal Street, the city begins to dissolve. The dense rows of brick give way to individual houses, then to summer estates, and finally to the open country. Canal Street itself is a wide ditch designed to drain the remnants of the Collect Pond into the Hudson. It is a literal border between the urban core and the rural fringe. To the north are the hills and farms that will one day be Midtown. In the 1800s, this is where the city's elite build their villas, stone houses with wide porches and views of the river, away from the noise and the sickness of the lower wards. The people of New York are a restless assembly. You see the Bowery Bobs and Bowery Gals, working-class youths with a distinct style of dress and a defiant swagger. The men wear their hair slicked with bear grease and sport loud, velvet waistcoats. The women wear bright colors and elaborate bonnets, asserting their presence in a city that often tries to ignore them. There is a military presence as well. Local militias in colorful, impractical uniforms parade in the Battery, their brass buttons glinting in the sun. They are a reminder of the city's defensive posture in a world where British warships are still a memory of the recent past. Industry is small-scale but loud. In the shipyards along the East River, the rhythmic clink-clink of caulking irons fills the air from dawn until dusk. Blacksmiths work in open-fronted shops, the orange glow of their forges spilling out onto the sidewalk. Everything in this New York is made by hand, repaired by hand, and moved by hand. The physical exertion required to keep the city running is visible in the strained muscles of the draymen and the bent backs of the women carrying bundles of laundry. Inside a typical middle-class home on State Street, the atmosphere is one of hushed propriety. The rooms are filled with heavy mahogany furniture, the floors covered in woven ingrain carpets. Heat comes from small marble fireplaces, and the light is provided by argand lamps that burn expensive spermaceti oil. The walls are decorated with framed silhouettes and needlepoint samplers. From the tall windows, the family looks out at a world that is changing outside their door every single day. They hear the cries of the chimney sweeps, small boys covered in soot who climb the narrow flues, and the clatter of the milkman's wagon. The Great Fire of 1835 stands as a pivot point in the city's history. It began on a bitterly cold night in December, when the river was frozen and the firemen's hoses were useless. Over 600 buildings in the financial district were leveled in a single night. The sight of the city in flames, reflecting off the ice in the harbor, was an emotional climax for a generation. Yet, true to the character of New York, the rebuilding began before the ashes were cold. The old wooden structures were replaced with modern, fire-resistant granite and brick. The fire forced the city to finally build the Croton Aqueduct, bringing fresh, clean water from upstate and forever changing the physical health of the island. From an aerial perspective, the AI reconstruction reveals the extraordinary compression of this era. New York is a city of the edge, a dense, vertical-leaning assembly of brick, mast, and mud. It is a city trapped between its colonial past and its industrial future, already outgrowing the southern tip of the island. The grid plan of 1811 has already been laid out on paper, a ruthless map that ignores the hills and streams of the natural landscape in favor of 2,000 identical blocks. The city is preparing to march north, to level the hills and fill the valleys, to become the metropolis the world recognizes today. To see New York in the 1800s is to see a city that never pauses to catch its breath. It is a place of high stakes and raw energy, where the domestic and the commercial are pressed tightly together. It is a city of stone and slate, of silk and mud, a living museum of the American ambition. As the sun sets over the Hudson, casting long shadows across the cobblestones of Broadway, the flickering lamps begin to glow, and the city prepares for another night of restless, unceasing growth.